Welcome to the journey. My name is Julieann Hartman, and we have a very special guest. If you missed last week's episode of Virginia Croy, please go back and watch it because she is setting up the whole stage for you to see and hear what happened in her life with her relationship with the Lord, with her family, how she was basically in a cult. It was in a religious organization that was very weird, a lack of a better word, weird and destructive. And anyway, so that's where we're at. So now we're going to get into some meat of it and to expose more lies, and so that can free you. If you have anything that looks like this, run from that church or that place they're telling you is church, because that is not Jesus. So thank you so much for joining me again, Virginia.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we left off with, what it looked like in the day in the life of Virginia and her 10 brothers and sisters. And we had said earlier in the previous episode that your mom was very controlling, for fear of losing you all. And, I wanted to add something to that, is that my father had the same kind of a life. I think he also, I know he was abused and saw things he probably shouldn't have. But because of that, he really tried to keep us sheltered too. So we weren't allowed to go spend the night at anybody's house. And we, of course, would play with other kids. But as far as being with one of the dad of a parent of one of our friends, no way was that happening. But there is some truth to that, because there are some bad people out there, right? But you can't be paranoid. I mean, I think that the Holy Spirit, thank God, will be the one that will tell you whether something is good or not. That's why we ask the Lord about everything, right? Because you never know. You don't know what's going on this day and age. So let's get into maybe your parents' relationship. Did you guys see a great marriage? Did you see a loving marriage? What was that like?
No, it wasn't loving. He never spoke much. My father didn't. He was very quiet, like I said earlier. But she would always say, I would have left your father long ago if it wasn't for the Lord. So she obviously had issues. And she just complained about him a lot.
Was it that he wasn't good enough? He wasn't,
he didn't work hard enough. Sometimes he didn't step up and do what she wanted. Like she thought he should step up and correct the children, but yet so many times if he did, then he didn't do it the right way. So I think he just took the back seat and said, forget it. And she did all the correcting and laying down the law and giving orders. So even though our life was strict, we did have a good home life. I don't want people to think, it was just absolutely miserable. It wasn't. We got along. She tried to make it the best she could for us. And she taught us to do things, and we worked. We had a good life, if you want to call it that, within the confines, because we didn't know any different. So we got along. We made our fun. We had fun together in what we did.
Okay, so when the first one of your siblings went outside of the house, started dating or getting married, how did that work out? And did they leave because they saw what they were living in was such bondage, or did they leave because they've met somebody?
Yeah, there was a lot of tension when that would happen, but she mostly would have them have, like when my sister started dating, then him and her boyfriend and his friends would come into our house rather than her go out to them.
Now, did she start dating someone from the church?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh
yeah, you didn't marry outside. And if you did go outside and get someone, which she pretty much made sure we didn't, but other people in the church did, they made sure that they came in and joined a church before they could get married. They had to accept.
And what was the success rate on that?
There was a lot that would join just because they wanted to marry their spouse, be it the boy or the girl. And then after a while, they fizzled out. They wouldn't come to church. The other one would, the regular attending member, be it the girl or the boy, they would still come, but then the one they brought in didn't. And so we always said we would never marry outside the church because we didn't want to be a single parent kind of situation.
Okay, so who was the first one? I mean, who ventured outside of the church?
You mean in my family?
Yes, yeah.
It was my sister. The one who left home, she left first, and then she married somebody out, but then we didn't associate with her, so we didn't even know him at all. And then she ended up divorcing him after she had 2 children with him, and she just had a rough life. My other sister, who was older than me, she is, oh no, my brother was the third one. He was the first one to get married, but he never ventured outside the church. He married within the church, and so did my sister, and then my younger brother also.
So
they
the sister that married somebody outside the church, did they get divorced based on just the friction of she could not be around her family?
No, they did not get along. I guess because she was 18 when she left, and she just didn't know how to handle life. It was just really rough on her. She had no one around her. She basically was going it alone, because she had no support from us.
Right.
We didn't even fellowship.
So how did that make you feel as a kid? Like, how old were you when she left?
6. I was probably 13.
How did you feel about that? Were you sad about it? Were you allowed to be sad about it?
Oh, we couldn't let our mother know, but I hated it. And so my sister right under me and my next one was a sister. She and I made a pact within ourselves that we would never shun anybody or turn anybody away from our door. Should we ever go out and get married or anything, that we would never turn someone away, because we hated that. But we could never tell anybody our feelings. That's something you had to keep within yourself. But we would talk at night up in our room, and so we made that pact with each other and I said, if you ever see me doing it, and she said, and if you ever see me doing it, we promised we would correct each other, that we would never shun anyone. So there was, as we get older, there was little cracks in our wall, I guess you would say. And I believe that's why we started to see things that weren't making sense. So if I would go to my mother and say, well, the Bible says this, I don't understand, because the church says this, she would just call me a wicked, disobedient child. You never question anything. She goes, I never question anything. You take what comes over that pulpit. It's the true word of God, and that's what you believe. So she didn't have answers either. And I think that was her only way of dealing with it, without shaming herself, of saying, I don't understand. Because then we were probably said, well, then why don't you do something about it? Or why don't you find out truth? And they didn't want to deal with that.
Well, there was more of you than there was of your mom. So if you all would have started asking questions, it would have been overwhelming for her, and she wouldn't have been able to answer them.
Absolutely. And so she just shut you down with, you wicked, disobedient child. You don't question what comes over the pulpit. And so there were a lot of questions in my mind and my younger sisters. The older ones, she had already had them so trained that I don't believe they questioned anything. I really don't. They just listened to her and did what the church said. But my middle sisters, they're the ones who started rebelling. The one got married and the one had left home. So she was kind of cracking down on us a little harder, because she didn't want us to leave. But yet in another way, she was mellowing out because she was getting older, and I think she was just getting weary. So she didn't argue with us. She just would tell us not to question anything. You weren't allowed to ask questions.
So, but you yourself, you did have questions, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Did you not know that you could go to the Lord yourself? I mean, were you, it had to be under a different way to talk to the Lord, or did you know that you had freedom to talk to him at any time?
No, I really don't think I was aware of that. I talked to him to confess everything and would beg him not to punish me with the sickness, or, confess and tell him I'm sorry for everything. So that's how I communicated with him. Just out of fear, always asking him for something to protect me, to keep me. It just, I didn't know that you could have a relationship with him.
Did you ever hear the voice of the Lord yourself and think, what was that? But you just kind of had to push it down.
Not that I'm aware of. I thought it was myself. If you had a good thought, or if you thought to do something for somebody, you just thought that you thought it. I didn't understand that God could talk to me. It wasn't until after I come out, then we looked back and we said, oh my goodness, God was trying to talk to us and reach us. And my sisters and I would compare things a lot. So you would look back on it and say, oh my goodness, that had to have been God. So,
but you didn't know that to listen to him, because I before I got saved, the Lord spoke to me about my girls, our girls, we 2 daughters. And I heard an audible voice in my bedroom, and I knew nothing about God at all. He was a punisher as far as I knew. But I knew that day, I said, I'm looking around the room going, who said that? Like somebody just talked to me and there's nobody in this house. But I just knew, it's like, wow, that was God. But I was like, well, whoever you are, you'll have to show me what to do. Like, how do I do this? He told me to prepare our daughters for greatness. So I said, okay, after I got freaked out of hearing a voice. And I said, all right, well, whoever you are, you're just going to have to tell me how to do it. So I did. That's why I'm curious if you heard the Lord speak to you ever, but you weren't.
I did after I got married. That's what started changing me. Because I had gotten so sick. I had gotten married and I had my second child. She wasn't quite 2 years old. And I got really sick one day in church, and my husband literally had to carry me out. I could not walk. It just come over me, bam. And early Tuesday morning, like maybe 2, 3 in the morning, something exploded inside of me. And they tell me my appendix burst. But I had been in bed since Sunday. I could not move. I couldn't hardly even breathe. The pain was so intense. And but when that exploded, I couldn't do anything. I was a vegetable. I couldn't talk. I could just make grunting sounds. And so my husband called his mother and they started tending to me. They had to spoon feed me. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. I was just a vegetable. And so then when I started getting my voice back, and I really started questioning God, like, who are you? Because I was always told that if we lived the church, what they said, if we lived their rules, nothing bad would ever happen to us. And this was the worst. So my sister, who lived in West Virginia at the time, she took my oldest son. He was only not even 4 years old yet. And then my girlfriend, who lived up in beyond Harrisburg, she was 2 hours away. She took my daughter. So now I don't see my children. I don't have a life. I can't get out of the chair. And then this would cripple me. There was just this burning in my side that pulled me over. It literally shrunk my body. And I walked in half. When I literally get back up on my feet, I looked at the floor. I was bent totally in half, and my husband would have to lead me by the hand. And that's how I had to sit. And I just remember I started saying, God, who are you? If you really exist, show yourself to me. And one day I was sitting there reading my Bible, because he would pile books on the couch beside me, and then he'd go off to work, and I couldn't do anything. And I'm just sitting there looking at the floor. And so one day I was reading my Bible, and first I had said, God, I don't even believe you exist, because this shouldn't have happened to me. I was a good Christian. I didn't do anything that church said not to do. So I never cut my hair. I didn't wear jewelry. I didn't wear makeup. I didn't wear pants. I didn't do anything. I lived a good life. So see, they were the things to say you were a Christian. And so one day I heard that voice. first I was reading a word and I'm like, I never read this before. It was just like that Bible became alive on my lap, and I was so scared. I closed it and put it down on the floor. I didn't even lay it beside me. I was afraid of it. And it was the third day I heard a voice. It was like someone standing behind a couch in my room, in my living room. And he said, read my word. And I said, who are you, Lord? I did. So see, I knew it was him. I don't know how, because I looked back on that and I was like, how? And he said, why aren't you reading my word? And I said, I don't, the devil couldn't take my life. I didn't go to the hospital, because that was the one thing. If you could stay out of the hospital, you'd make it to heaven for sure with bells on. And I said, well, I didn't go to the hospital and he didn't take my life. He couldn't take it. So now he's trying to deceive me. And that voice just said, he doesn't know the truth to deceive you. Now read my word.
Oh, wait a minute. That you just dropped a big one there. Wow.
Yeah.
Say that again.
So he said he doesn't know the truth to deceive you. So read my word. So I picked that Bible up and I was scared to open it, but eventually I did. And I wouldn't turn around and look either, because I was petrified I'd see somebody. And I was so frightened. You have no idea the fear. But I knew it was God. And I started reading and I couldn't stop. It was just like coming off of a hot, dry desert and someone giving you a cold glass of water. And I just kept going, oh, Lord, feed me. I'm so hungry. And he did. He started feeding me. And and this is the weird part, but I walked over to the table. My husband had I had a tape player there that I would tape my children talking and send it to my sisters, and then they talk back and send the tape back to them, a little cassette tape. Aww. But my husband would take and listen to the radio, and he would listen to the ball games. But I always went upstairs, so if the Lord struck him with lightning, I wasn't around. I always went upstairs. He listened to the radio. I was so afraid, because that was
that's so funny, but weird.
That was a serious sin. Listen, my mother even unhooked the radios in every car we bought in case we were tempted to listen to them. Absolutely. You couldn't buy a car and drive in it until the radio got unhooked. So I was so petrified that he'd get struck with lightning, because he had the audacity to listen to the radio and listen to the ball games. But
weren't you sad that he was going to go to hell for doing that?
I thought he was, but I wasn't going to be around when God struck him. So this is the really strange thing. I look back on it and I'm like, whatever compelled me that day, I do not know. But I'm bent in half. So I'm holding on to things as I'm walking out to my kitchen, and I walked to that tape player and turned that radio on. And this man's voice is coming over, speaking about Jesus. I didn't know that at night, when my husband listened to the ball game, it was the same station that during the day was a Christian station. I didn't know that they had Christian radio, because we never had it. So I didn't know, but this guy's talking about Jesus. And I went back in the room as fast as I could, got my Bible, and I sat there and thought, oh my goodness, he's telling the truth. It says this, it says this. And that's how God started feeding me. And then one day I'm like, Lord, I don't know if they're telling all the truth. What if they're lying to me? I don't want to get back in a lie.
But wait, now, okay, so you say you don't want to get back in a lie. So you already now were starting to
see Jesus.
Okay, got it.
Understand that Jesus was God. And I'm like, but not fully. I just knew I was hearing something that I never heard before, but I just knew it was truth. I don't know how to tell you that. Like understanding Jesus.
Right.
And there was a peace inside. But anyways, I said to God, don't ever let me hear something false, that I would start believing these lies again. Just teach me truth till you have me grounded, and then I'll be able to understand and know when false comes. And that's when he gave me Andrew. Only Andrew of that broken TV. It was incredible.
Wow. Okay, well, all right. So you said that we didn't talk about how you end up getting married. So what's your husband's name?
Richard.
Okay, so Richard was a part of the church then?
Yes. Yes, okay. He was.
And then
And
you guys started, was your mom okay with you dating Richard?
my mom had already passed away.
Oh, okay.
That's the only reason we got to date. All my other sisters got married after my mother passed.
All right. So if you left and you got married while your mom was still alive, that was a sin for her, right? Or she?
Yeah, she wouldn't allow that to happen.
Oh,
She just chased
okay.
every man away. You
All
just
right. So then so she ended up passing. And then how old were you when she passed away?
I was 34.
Oh my gosh. So you lived at home until you were 34?
Yeah, my older sisters, they were in their 40s. Yeah,
Oh.
all of us. Yeah, all
And
of
you
us were.
didn't think that was weird at all?
Well, we just never ever felt we'd get married because first off, there was no one in the church and you couldn't go outside the church.
Well, and so if you never saw TV shows or you never got to meet other people, you wouldn't have known anyway.
No.
Okay, I get that. It's so foreign to me because I'm like, okay, well, how did we know certain things? Oh, we saw it on TV, right? Yeah, could you imagine the kids that are stuck in that kind of organization today with all the phones and stuff? Like, how do they?
Oh, I
I
can't
don't know
imagine.
how they're like keeping them from all that now. But all right, so then so you're in your 30s and then your mom passes away, you meet your husband, and so how did you feel? Were you like going, oh, the minute she goes, I'm going to start dating? Or were you like devastated and like, what do I do now? Do I start dating?
No, those thoughts never even entered my head. You were just so used to living life with each other and just, I just thought life was going on like that. And then I met him and then he started asking me out and then it just progressed from there. But it wasn't normal. It wasn't real to me. If like, it wasn't that teenage stuff. You were so far beyond that. I don't know how to describe it, but
Like the butterflies and all that.
yeah, like it was exciting and planning my wedding and knowing I was getting married, but it was just another step in life to me.
Now, had you been to another wedding? Had you seen a wedding?
Yeah, I have been to my sisters and my brothers,
Okay.
and then two of my cousins, I've been to their weddings. So, that was just normal for them. That just wasn't something that was going to happen to me. So, it was strange for me in one
Okay.
way.
Was your dad alive? Did your dad?
No,
pass
no,
your
my
mom?
dad had passed before my mom, and he passed 3 years before my mom did.
And
And
how
then
did you deal with that? And how'd you all deal with that?
it was very hard because I couldn't understand, and I started really questioning God when he passed because he was a pastor, and God should have healed him. We believed solely in healing, not going to the doctors, that God would solely heal us.
What
And
was
so
wrong? What was wrong with him?
he had cancer.
Okay.
And
Now, did you think that he did something to get the cancer? Was that the whole part of it
well,
as well?
no, I didn't think so. I didn't understand why my dad got sick because I thought he was so perfect. He was just quiet and he just was perfect. And he was a pastor and he should have been preaching the gospel as we thought it was. And so I couldn't understand why God would take him. I did a lot of questioning and I had a hard time dealing with his death. And then my mother, she got breast cancer. And I took off a year from work. I took a leave of absence and I took care of her. So that was really hard on me too. And I didn't understand why there was no healing there when you prayed for it and you believed that God would do it and he didn't.
Now, I have a question. Have you seen other people? I mean, okay, I know you had well, no, wait, your ruptured appendix happened after that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So had you seen miracles and healings in your church?
Occasionally, yes. you saw people get healed that you did not believe would, they had things, but it was very rare, and then you had people who, a lot of them sometimes would sneak off to the hospital.
No,
Then
that was the mercy of God, right?
but they always had to come back. If they had to get back in the good graces of the church, they had to come back and confess that they were sorry for doing that.
Okay, so if they went to the hospital, they had to come back and go in front of the church and say,
well, they just went to the pastor. As long as they confessed to the pastor, then they could be back in. Like,
how did they think people were going to die? They were just going to close their eyes one day and go?
I guess it just wasn't anything that was discussed.
And did the pastor die?
Yes.
Die of natural causes? He just shut his eyes one day because.
No, most of them all got sick and died. So, wow. Yeah, but it wasn't anything that you questioned, because you were allowed to question God. It was his divine way. He called them, and that's what you were told. Heaven needed another angel, or God called them home. It was their time to go. Their life on earth was done. And so it wasn't the sickness that wiped them out. Now, if it was a younger person, then it was usually someone committed something, and right. You had to make that right, like the parents committed a sin or something like that.
Virginia, I hear that a lot, and it breaks my heart.
Mine too.
I just, it's so sad, because God has just been painted a picture of him of just being this horrible dictator. Yeah. And that's why people run from it. They don't, even though they didn't want to hear about your relationship with the Lord, because they know what they've already experienced, and they just, they can't see it any other way.
Well, since I come out and I heard Andrew's teaching and that God wanted me well, and I couldn't understand that, but I wanted it. I couldn't get enough of it. But I came to the understanding of this: when you're in a religion, you're bound by fear. And so you can be believing for healing, but it's not going to be there. God's not in the realm of fear. And you can beg God. You have to come to him, rest in him, and know who he is. Know who you are in him, that he's in you and you're in him. And know that that healing was already done. And when you come to that place of rest and peace, your healing's there. It's just that simple. But because we didn't know Jesus, religion doesn't know him as God. He is not. The Holy Spirit isn't there. Then there's no power. And so I believe there's some in religion, like with me. I so innocently believed that God would heal me back when I had my appendix burst. I just knew I would get healed in a way, but I didn't know God. And I think that was his mercy, sheer mercy. He does that to bring us to him, because he knew that I was a victim in my religion. That wasn't a choice.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Religion is what man makes. Relationship is what Jesus does for us. And
right.
Boy, that's just, it's so, and then the fear alone makes your body react. And I believe, people talk about, fear is not, if a little fear is better than, it helps you. It makes you go after your vision even more. It's like, no, a little bit of fear is toxic, because no matter what, your body is going to react to the fear, whether it's a chemical thing, and your body starts, with your heart rate raising, and, all the things that happen with fear. And so that's how we get sick. And so that's what's so interesting about that. But here's the problem. We have to go, because we're out of time already. This is going way too fast. But I thank you so much again, Virginia, for coming on the show. We're going to do another one, because we still have got so much to talk about. And I know it's like your story goes on and on and on, because they need to hear the freedom, they need to hear who you are now and how awesome God has changed your life in every way. And so thank you all for joining us. Please go to healingjourneystoday.com and check out everything that we have to offer there. We've got so many great things coming up with conferences and just little, new things that we're starting at Healing Journeys Today, because we love doing really creative shows to bring you any possible way to get the gospel to you, to get to the truth of who Jesus is to you. We will do it. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Virginia. We'll see you next time on the journey. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.